The gleaming towers of Mitchell Technologies pierced the San Francisco skyline. Inside the executive suite, Connor Mitchell stood at the mahogany table staring at the streets below. At 34, he had built his tech empire from an MIT dorm room into a global powerhouse. Yet tonight felt different. Tonight, the carefully constructed walls around his personal life were about to be tested. The Peninsula Hotel ballroom glittered under crystal chandeliers. Connor's invitation lay untouched on his desk, a reminder of obligations he could no longer avoid. The board had been vocal about his image, whispering about unmarketable perceptions. Being a successful gay CEO should have been a badge of honor, but Connor had learned visibility came with a price. His phone buzzed. Maya Chen appeared on screen. "The gala starts in an hour, Connor. The board wants to see you with someone stable." Connor closed his eyes, remembering the humiliation of executives discussing his personal life like a quarterly report. The hostile takeover attempt from Zenith Corp had investors spooked. The trauma from MIT still haunted him. David Chen, his roommate and secret boyfriend, had sold their private photos when Connor refused to come out publicly. The headlines destroyed his scholarship prospects and faith in love. Since then, Connor had chosen solitude over vulnerability. Across town, Adrian Torres adjusted his silver watch. At 32, he had spent his adult life following the path laid out by his father Roberto, climbing the corporate ladder with mechanical precision. Lately, that path felt more like a prison. The engagement ring box sat unopened on his dresser, intended for Maria Santangelo, daughter of his father's business partner. Their families had orchestrated this union with strategic thinking. His phone rang. Roberto's voice filled the apartment. The Mitchell situation presents an interesting opportunity. "Adrian, Connor Mitchell will be at the gala tonight, probably alone. That man has been a thorn in our side, but his vulnerability might work in our favor." Adrian listened as his father outlined a plan that made his stomach turn. A carefully orchestrated encounter, designed to look accidental but calculated to the minute. Connor's rumored preference for men could be the key to creating a scandal that would destabilize Mitchell Technologies just enough for Torres Global to swoop in with a merger offer. The plan was manipulative and cruel, exactly the corporate warfare that made Adrian question the family business. But refusing Roberto Torres was not an option when 3 generations hung in the balance. Adrian pocketed the engagement ring and headed for the door. The Peninsula Hotel ballroom buzzed with San Francisco's most influential residents. Connor arrived fashionably late, hoping to minimize exposure to invasive questions. He moved through the crowd with practiced efficiency, the rainbow flag pin on his lapel catching photographer attention. Adrian appeared near the curved marble staircase, commanding attention even in a room full of powerful people. Connor noticed him immediately, recognizing the sharp jawline from business magazines. Roberto Torres' son was exactly what the family legacy demanded. The collision happened with theatrical precision. Adrian's foot caught on the marble step, sending him tumbling into Connor's path. Strong arms instinctively reached out, and suddenly Adrian Torres was pressed against Connor Mitchell's chest, their faces inches apart, while camera flashes immortalized the moment. Time slowed as they stared at each other. Frozen by unexpected intimacy, Adrian's cologne carried cedar and bergamot notes, warm and masculine in a way that made Connor's pulse quicken. For a heartbeat that felt like eternity, nothing existed except the weight of Adrian's body and the startled recognition in those dark eyes. Reality crashed back in waves of clicking cameras. Social media would explode with speculation within the hour. What started as corporate manipulation was about to become something far more dangerous. Testing everything they thought they knew about love and authenticity, 2 men from rival families, caught in deception that would either destroy them or set them free. The photographs would reshape both their lives in ways neither could imagine. Sometimes the heart refuses to follow scripts written by others. Subscribe to Heart Stories, where every collision becomes a catalyst and every story proves love finds a way. The morning after the gala, Connor's penthouse office felt more like a war room than a workspace. His phone had been buzzing relentlessly since dawn. Calls from reporters, investors, and board members all wanting answers about the photographs that had dominated tech industry headlines. Maya Chen sat across from his desk, scrolling through social media feeds with the grim efficiency of a crisis manager. The images were everywhere. Connor and Adrian locked in what appeared to be an intimate embrace. Their faces so close they looked like lovers sharing a secret. The captions ranged from romantic speculation to wild conspiracy theories about corporate mergers disguised as romance. Connor's assistant knocked and entered without waiting for permission. "Adrian Torres is here to see you, sir. He says it's urgent." Connor exchanged glances with Maya, who raised an eyebrow but said nothing. "Send him in." Adrian entered with confidence, but Connor could see tension in how he held his shoulders, the slight tightness around his eyes. "We need to talk," Adrian said without preamble. "Whatever you have to say, you can say it in front of Maya. She knows everything about my business." Adrian hesitated, then sat across from Connor's desk. "The photographs are creating exactly the kind of speculation my father anticipated. Torres Global stock rose 12 points in pre-market trading this morning. Investors are interpreting our apparent connection as a sign of potential collaboration between our companies." Connor leaned back in his chair, studying Adrian's face. "And what do you propose we do about it?" "We could issue a joint statement clarifying that the collision was accidental, that there's no romantic involvement between us. The speculation would die down eventually." But Adrian's voice lacked conviction, and Connor caught the hesitation. "Or," Connor prompted, "or we could let people believe what they want to believe." Adrian met Connor's gaze directly. "My father called this morning. He wants to discuss a potential partnership, using our apparent personal connection as a bridge to ease negotiations. It would be mutually beneficial." Maya leaned forward. "And what would your role be in this arrangement?" Torres Adrian's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "I would be the liaison between our companies, the public face of the collaboration, which would require us to maintain the illusion that last night's collision led to something more than bruised dignity." The room fell silent except for the soft hum of air conditioning and distant San Francisco traffic. Connor found himself studying Adrian's hands, noting the absence of the engagement ring he had been wearing the night before. The golden band was gone, leaving only a pale line where it had been. "You took off your engagement ring," Connor observed. Adrian looked down at his hand, then back up. "Maria and I had a conversation this morning. She's not interested in being part of a marriage that was arranged for business purposes. She deserves someone who can love her the way she deserves to be loved. And we both know that person isn't me." The honesty in Adrian's voice caught Connor off guard. He had expected corporate calculation, not personal revelation. "What changed?" Connor asked quietly. Adrian was quiet for a long moment, as if weighing how much truth he was willing to share. "When I was pressed against you last night, when our faces were so close, I felt something I've never felt before. Not with Maria, not with anyone. I've spent my entire life doing what was expected of me, following the path my family laid out. But for just a moment, I felt like I might be capable of wanting something for myself." Maya cleared her throat softly. "I'll leave you two to discuss the business aspects of this arrangement." She gathered her files and headed for the door, pausing to look back at Connor. "Whatever you decide, make sure it's what you want, not what the board wants." Connor stood and walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the bay. "So you're proposing that we fake a relationship to facilitate a business merger? It's not entirely fake if there are real feelings involved," Adrian said carefully. Are there real feelings involved?" Adrian stood and moved closer to the window, close enough that Connor could catch the faint scent of his cologne. "I've never been attracted to a man before. I've never questioned my sexuality. Never wondered what it would be like to kiss someone like you. But since last night, I can't stop thinking about it." The admission hung between them like a challenge. Connor felt his carefully constructed emotional walls beginning to crack. 3 months, Connor said finally. "We maintained the appearance of a relationship for 3 months. Public dinners, charity events, enough appearances to convince the media and our boards that this is real. At the end of 3 months, we quietly part ways. And if real feelings develop during that time, Then we deal with them when they arise, Connor said. But we go into this knowing it's temporary, knowing that our companies and our reputations are on the line. They shook hands across Connor's desk, their fingers lingering just a moment longer than necessary. As Adrian left the office, Connor remained standing at the window, watching the flying roll in from the Pacific. He had just agreed to the most dangerous gamble of his career. Sometimes the greatest opportunities come disguised as the most terrifying decisions. And sometimes the only way to find authentic connection is to start with genuine deception. 6 weeks into their arrangement, Connor and Adrian had developed a rhythm that felt surprisingly natural. Tuesday dinners at Michelin-starred restaurants, Saturday appearances at charity functions, Sunday morning walks through Golden Gate Park that were carefully timed to coincide with the weekend joggers and photographers who documented San Francisco's social scene. Their first real test came at the Tech Innovation Summit in Napa Valley, where both Mitchell Technologies and Torres Global were presenting competing proposals for a major government contract. The conference organizers had arranged for them to share a suite, seeing their apparent relationship as an opportunity for dramatic irony. The suite was elegant and spacious, with a sitting area overlooking the valley vineyards in a bedroom that they would have to navigate carefully to maintain their professional boundaries. Connor set his laptop on the dining table, while Adrian unpacked his clothes with the methodical precision that Connor had learned was characteristic of everything Adrian did. The evolution of their dynamic over the past weeks had been subtle but undeniable. What had started as awkward public performances had gradually become comfortable companionship. Adrian laughed at Connor's dry observations about industry figures, while Connor found himself looking forward to Adrian's insights about family dynamics and corporate strategy. They had learned each other's coffee preferences, discovered a shared appreciation for obscure documentaries, and developed inside jokes that made their public interactions seem authentic. But it was the private moments that had begun to feel dangerous. The way Adrian's fingers brushed Connor's when passing documents, the comfortable silences that stretched between them during long car rides, the increasing difficulty Connor had in remembering that this was supposed to be temporary. That evening, after successful presentations that had impressed the government officials, they found themselves alone on the suite's terrace with a bottle of wine and the warm Napa Valley air carrying the scent of ripening grapes. Adrian had loosened his tie and rolled up his sleeves, and Connor couldn't help but notice the way the moonlight caught the strong lines of his forearms. "Can I ask you something personal?" Adrian said, swirling the wine in his glass. Connor tensed slightly, but nodded. At MIT, when David betrayed your trust, what hurt more? The public exposure or the personal betrayal? Connor considered the question. Surprised by its directness, I thought it was the exposure. Having my private life turned into entertainment, losing control of my own narrative. But looking back, I think it was the betrayal. Realizing that someone I loved saw our relationship as a commodity, something to be sold for the right price. Adrian was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the vineyard lights dotting the valley below. "I've never been in love," he said finally. "I've never felt for anyone what you must have felt for David. Growing up in my family, emotions were seen as weaknesses, complications that got in the way of clear thinking. I was taught to evaluate relationships based on their strategic value rather than their emotional impact." "What changed?" Connor asked, though he suspected he knew the answer. "You," Adrian said simply, "being with you these past weeks, even in this artificial context, has made me realize how empty my life has been. I've been going through the motions of living without actually feeling anything. With you, I feel everything. The attraction, the curiosity, the fear, the hope. It's terrifying and exhilarating at the same time." Connor felt his careful emotional control slipping. This was exactly what he had tried to avoid. The moment when their business arrangement became something more complicated and potentially destructive. But looking at Adrian in the moonlight, seeing the vulnerability in his dark eyes, Connor found that he didn't want to maintain his distance anymore. "I feel it too." Connor admitted, "This wasn't supposed to happen. We agreed to keep this professional, but somewhere along the way, you became more than just a business partner. You became someone I look forward to seeing, someone whose opinion matters to me, Someone who makes me want to take risks I swore I'd never take again. Adrian set down his wine glass and moved closer, close enough that Connor could feel the warmth radiating from his body. I know this complicates everything, but I need to know what this feels like, what we feel like, when it's not for the cameras or the public or our families. The kiss was inevitable, a culmination of weeks of building tension and unspoken desire. Adrian's lips were soft but insistent, and Connor found himself responding with a hunger that surprised him. This was nothing like the careful, public displays they had performed for their audience. This was raw and honest and completely genuine. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. Adrian rested his forehead against Connor's, his hand still framing Connor's face. "I'm not the same person I was 6 weeks ago," Adrian whispered. "You've changed everything about how I see myself." Truth has a way of revealing itself even in situations built on deception. And sometimes the most honest thing we can do is admit when we've discovered something real in the midst of something artificial. The business center at the Napa Valley Resort was nearly empty at 7 in the morning. Adrian needed to print boarding passes for their afternoon flight back to San Francisco, and Connor was still asleep upstairs, looking more peaceful than Adrian had ever seen him. The past few days had been a revelation in every sense, not just about his feelings for Connor, but about who he was capable of being when he stopped trying to be the perfect son his father expected. He hummed quietly as he waited for the ancient printer to warm up, thinking about the conversation he needed to have with Roberto when they returned. Coming out to his traditional Italian father would be challenging, but Adrian felt ready to face that challenge. For the first time in his life, he had something worth fighting for, someone worth disappointing his family for. The printer finally responded, and Adrian fed it his boarding pass information. As the machine whirred to life, he noticed a folder left open on the nearby table, marked Confidential, Torres Global/Mitchell Technologies Partnership Agreement. Curiosity got the better of him, and he glanced at the first page. His blood turned to ice as he read the document, header Memorandum C, Public Relations Strategy. What followed was a detailed plan outlining everything that had happened between him and Connor, from the orchestrated collision at the gala to the carefully timed public appearances they had made over the past 6 weeks. Every restaurant dinner, every charity event, every seemingly spontaneous moment had been mapped out in clinical detail. But the section that made Adrian's stomach lurch was titled Psychological Profile and Manipulation Strategy. It contained an analysis of Connor's personality, his trauma from the MIT incident, his protective mechanisms, and specific recommendations for how Adrian should behave to gain Connor's trust and affection. There were suggested conversation topics, emotional triggers to exploit, and even recommendations for physical gestures that would create the illusion of genuine attraction. The document was dated 2 days before the gala, 2 days before their supposed accidental meeting. Everything they had shared, every moment of vulnerability Connor had revealed, every kiss they had exchanged, had been part of a calculated campaign designed by his father and executed by him, whether he had been conscious of it or not. Adrian's hands shook as he flipped through more pages. There were market analysis projections showing how their fake relationship would impact stock prices, investor confidence reports that depended on the public believing in their romance, and merger timelines that used their supposed love story as a negotiating tool. Connor's emotions, his trust, his willingness to open his heart again after years of protective isolation, had all been reduced to line items in a business plan. The worst part was the psychological assessment section, which detailed Connor's need for authentic connection and his fear of being used for corporate gain. The document recommended exploiting these exact vulnerabilities to create a sense of intimacy that would make Connor more amenable to business negotiations. It was manipulation at its most sophisticated and cruel. Adrian heard footsteps in the hallway and quickly closed the folder, but it was too late. Connor appeared in the doorway, his hair still messy from sleep, wearing the clothes from the night before. He looked happy, relaxed in a way that made Adrian's heart break all over again. "You're up early," Connor said with a smile that was so genuine it made Adrian feel physically sick. I was gonna surprise you with coffee and pastries from that place you liked yesterday. Adrian tried to speak but found his voice had abandoned him. Connor noticed the folder on the table and frowned slightly. What's that, he asked, moving closer. Connor, I need to tell you something, Adrian managed, but his voice sounded strangled and strange. The happiness faded from Connor's face as he registered the distress in Adrian's expression. What's wrong, Connor asked, but he was already reaching for the folder, already beginning to understand that whatever was in those pages was going to change everything between them. Adrian watched in helpless horror as Connor read the document, saw the exact moment when comprehension dawned in his gray eyes. The color drained from Connor's face, and his hands began to tremble as he flipped through page after page of calculated manipulation disguised as business strategy. This is dated before the gala, Connor said quietly, his voice completely devoid of emotion. Before we met, before the accident. It wasn't an accident, Adrian whispered, the admission tearing at his throat. My father planned everything. The collision, the timing, the photographers, everything. Connor set the folder down carefully. And did you know about this? Adrian wanted to lie, wanted to claim ignorance, but he couldn't add deception to the betrayal Connor was already processing. I knew about the basic plan to create a public connection between us for business purposes, but I didn't know about the psychological profiling, the manipulation strategies. I didn't know it was this detailed, this calculated. But you knew enough, Connor said, and Adrian could hear the walls going back up in Connor's voice. You knew you were supposed to make me trust you, supposed to make me believe this was real. Connor laughed, but it was a sound completely devoid of humor. How am I supposed to know what's real and what's performance? Every conversation we've had, every moment of supposed intimacy, was it guided by this playbook? When you told me you'd never been attracted to a man before, when you kissed me last night, when you looked at me this morning like I was someone special, which parts were Adrian Torres and which parts were just excellent acting? Sometimes the greatest betrayals come not from strangers, but from the people we trust most to have our best interests at heart. 3 months after the devastating revelation in Napa Valley, Connor had built new walls around his heart that were higher and stronger than anything he had constructed before. Mitchell Technologies had not only survived the scandal, but had thrived, earning respect for Connor's principled stand against manipulative business practices. But success felt hollow when he spent every evening alone in his penthouse, remembering the weight of Adrian's head on his shoulder during those stolen mornings in Napa Valley. Maya had tried intervention through work distractions, blind dates, and even a carefully planned vacation to Tokyo that Connor had spent working 16-hour days to avoid thinking about what he had lost. The invitation to the Children's Hospital Gala arrived on a Tuesday morning, delivered by hand to his office. Connor almost threw it away immediately, remembering the last gala and how it had started the most complicated and painful chapter of his life. But something about the timing, exactly 1 year since he had first held Adrian in his arms, made him reconsider. Adrian had spent the same 3 months discovering who he was without the weight of his family's expectations crushing his spirit. Coming out to Roberto had been every bit as difficult as he had anticipated, resulting in a temporary estrangement and his resignation from Torres Global Industries. But the freedom that followed had been revelatory. He had started a nonprofit organization focused on LGBTQ+ youth mentorship, using his business skills and family connections to create safe spaces for young people struggling with identity and family acceptance. The work was challenging but deeply fulfilling in a way that corporate maneuvering had never been. For the first time in his life, Adrian was building something that mattered more than profit margins. But every success felt incomplete without Connor there to share it. Adrian had written dozens of letters that he never sent, had picked up his phone to call hundreds of times only to realize he had no words that could undo the damage his family's manipulation had caused. The inspiration for his plan came during a late-night strategy session for the youth center. One of the teenagers he mentored, a 17-year-old named Marcus who had been disowned by his family for being gay, was talking about the power of public visibility, how seeing LGBTQ+ people living authentically gave him hope for his own future. Adrian realized that his love for Connor deserved the same kind of visibility, the same courageous honesty that he now demanded from himself in every other area of his life. If he was going to lose Connor forever, he was going to do it while speaking his truth completely and publicly. The Children's Hospital Gala was held at the same venue where everything had begun, but Adrian barely recognized the ballroom. He had spent weeks preparing for this moment, writing and rewriting his speech, practicing in front of mirrors and trusted friends, steeling himself for the public humiliation that would likely follow. When the lights dimmed and he walked onto the small stage, Adrian's heart was beating so hard he was certain the audience could hear it. He had changed into simple, dark jeans and a white button-down shirt, deliberately choosing clothes that made him look approachable rather than corporate. "Thank you all for being here tonight," he began, his voice slightly unsteady. "I know I'm supposed to talk about the incredible work this hospital does for children, and I will. But first I need to say something personal that I should have said months ago." The room went quiet. Adrian searched the crowd until he found Connor, sitting alone at a table near the back, his expression carefully neutral, but his gray eyes completely focused on the stage. "A year ago, at this same event, I participated in something that I thought was just business strategy, but that became the most meaningful relationship of my life. Connor Mitchell, if you're listening, I need you to know that what I felt for you was real. What we shared was real." Adrian pulled a stack of papers from his pocket and held them up. "This is the original agreement between Torres Global Industries and my father's team. The contract that orchestrated our meeting and planned our fake relationship." He tore the papers in half, then in half again, letting the pieces fall to the stage floor. "I love you. I love your terrible jokes and your obsession with obscure documentaries. I love how you make decisions based on what's right rather than what's profitable. I love that you taught me the difference between wanting someone and loving someone. And if you can find a way to forgive me, I promise that everything between us from this moment forward will be honest and real and earned." The ballroom erupted in whispers and gasps, but Adrian only had eyes for Connor, who was walking slowly toward the stage. Connor climbed the steps and stood facing Adrian under the spotlight. "You destroyed a multi-million-dollar partnership," Connor said quietly. "It was worth destroying," Adrian replied. "Some things are more important than money." "You broke my heart," Connor said simply. "I know," Adrian whispered, "and I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make up for that if you'll let me." Connor reached for Adrian's hand slowly. "I missed you every single day," Connor said, tears falling openly. "I missed you so much that I was angry at myself for missing someone who had hurt me so badly. But what we had was real. Even if how it started was fake, what does it mean to love someone authentically? Perhaps it means choosing them again and again, even when they disappoint us. Perhaps it means building something together that honors both your individual growth and your shared commitment to becoming better people because of each other. Have you ever had to choose between what your family expected and what your heart knew was right? Share your story in the comments below. Someone out there might need to hear it. Subscribe to Heart Stories, where every scar becomes a story and every story has the power to heal.